Really interesting questions, because the 20s and your strategy for the 20s needs to be in place because it's only about 15 months away. So we spend a lot of time thinking about the longer term dynamics and where we want to put our money to work. The one thing I can say for sure is I agree with you completely that if you look at 2007, for example, the top 10 companies in the world were either energy companies or Chinese companies. And that was because the bull market was in China and was in oil and was in everything to do with commodities. If you fast forward, the last 10 years have really been about technology. If you look at the top 10 companies now, there's only Berkshire, Johnson & Johnson and Exxon which are in that top 10. The rest, everything is technology, whether you take Alibaba, whether you take Tencent from China, whether you take Facebook, Apple, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, these are all technology companies. 10 years back, it was only Microsoft which was represented in the top 10. So all I can say for certain is that the top 10 in the next 10 years will look very, very different. The areas where I'm focused on, where I think opportunities will come from, are quite varied. I'm interested in the pharmaceutical sector. I think with demographics, with aging, I think there will be certain companies which do something special on personalized medicine. It could be one of the incumbents which buys smartly, or it could be a new startup, but something along the lines of personalized medicine is an area which I'm focused on and looking for companies which will do something positive in that area. I think new energy is an area which is of interest to me. I think in 10 years' time, we will be thinking about new battery technology, maybe new raw materials which supply into that battery technology chain. We'll be looking for new energy sources, and companies which are playing in that arena, maybe on the renewable side, could be interesting. That's an area that we should be focused on. I think a lot of the technology companies will still be around, but in a very different form than they are in their current form. With the size that they're getting to, I think you will see an Amazon broken up into 2 or 3 companies, maybe AWS listed separately, which is their cloud services business. I think Google's Waymo project is very interesting, their driverless car. In 10 years' time, I would expect it not to be part of Google, but be a separate company. I'd say Apple, in its current form, may not be around unless it buys very smartly or innovates very, very smartly. They'll need to, there may be new ways that we're accessing the internet, accessing information, accessing data, which currently we're doing with the smartphones, but it could be different in 10 years' time. So while you're thinking about the companies which could make their way into the index of the top 10, you have to also think about companies which may exit the index, and Apple would be a case in point. I think Facebook's an interesting one. I think maybe, they're very smart acquirers, which they've done with Instagram and WhatsApp, but the Facebook core property, when I look at my millennial friends, they don't seem to be using that. So in 10 years' time, I'd say that's something which is at risk. So, when you're thinking 10 years out, there's a lot going on in the world, which is fascinating, which is interesting. You've got to keep your eyes to the ground. You've got to meet companies in the ecosystem, be on top of the value chain to understand where that change is happening from, where that disruption is coming from, so you can be on top of all of this.